Hey y'all, I'm Jerdy, and in this video we're going to go over how to defeat Solistrasza in the Scarlet Enclave raid in Season of Discovery. Now, Solistrasza can be either the 3rd, 4th, or 5th boss of this raid between her, Mason the Echo, and Alexi the Beast Lord. She does have a fair amount of mechanics. This fight really isn't that hard to understand, but there are going to be some hard parts for your raid, especially your healers in this encounter. So let's go over her mechanics. First, you have to technically defeat her 3 times, as twice when she gets close to dying, she'll cast Lightgorged on herself, healing herself to full and knocking the raid back. The tank will have to deal with a tank debuff called Tarnished Breath. This stacks. Every time you get hit by this, you will suffer 10% of your maximum health as radiant damage for 1 second. So 2 stacks will deal 20%, 3, 30, etc, etc. She'll also randomly fly in the air and cast Hallowed Dive, crashing into the ground and dealing damage to players around her. When she does this, she'll summon 3 Lightgorged Whelps. These Whelps are one of the main mechanics of this encounter. When the Whelps die, they will cast Unstable Detonation, which deals damage to the entire raid. However, the longer they live, the more damage this ability does. She will also cast randomly Blistering Vent, a 10-second debuff that does 10% of your damage every second, meaning if you don't get healed at least 10%, this debuff will kill you. Now, Blistering Vent by itself, not too hard for your healers. The Lightgorged Whelps by themselves, not too hard for your healers. But when these 2 abilities line up, this is the main issue that's going to give most raids problems. But before we talk about that, let's talk about the other mechanics she has. There's also Radiant Light, which just deals damage on the ground if you get hit by it. Crimson Flare, which we believe now targets the closest player with a circle that you're to get out of place, and she will channel a breath to that circle. And last, there's an ability called Cremation, where she'll pick any random target throughout the raid and shoot an orb to that player's original location, and when it hits that spot, will drop fire on the ground. A lot of raids have trouble with this mechanic as well, but we'll go over how to beat this mechanic along with Blistering Vent and Lightgorged Whelps. So the strategy that I like to use as the main tank is on pull, I flip the boss so he's facing the center of the room, and my ranged and healers have their backs towards the wall as far as possible. That way Cremation goes to the wall, and you can see where Cremation is as a DPS or healer and have plenty of time to move out of it before it lands and deals damage to you. Range don't necessarily be in one big stack, but as long as they're against the wall, they're keeping the center free of fire. Crimson Flare seems to target the player closest towards Solistrasza. So if your melee DPS are max range and you are as close to the boss as possible as the tank, you can actually get this mechanic every single time. There's a couple of reasons why you as a tank want this. One, you want your DPS to be able to DPS the boss as long as possible without having to deal with mechanics. When Crimson Flare is being casted, the boss is actually not doing anything. She stands still, doesn't attack, doesn't cast anything. It's free damage for your raid. The other reason is that you as a tank are a lot smarter than your DPS, so you don't have to trust your Zug DPS to grief your entire raid and fail at this mechanic and drop the fire on top of your DPS. Come on, guys. We're griefing, y'all. Griefing. The marker move, marker move. Damn, man. Come on, guys. 3 times now we've done that shit. And the third reason is with the tank debuff Tarnished Breath. Because she's not moving, because you are the one getting away from her, you can actually drop your stacks. So always try to get this mechanic as the main tank. Next, let's talk about Lightgorged Whelps. This is where your off tank really comes in handy to pick these up. You want to burn these down as fast as possible. Ideally, they are being cleaved with the boss, but everybody in your raid needs to focus on the Lightgorged Whelps when they're out or they're griefing your raid. You should kill at least 2 of them and let the 3rd one blow up on its own. The reason being is because if Blistering Vent lines up with Lightgorged Whelps, killing all 3 of them fast might wipe your raid. Like I mentioned earlier, Blistering Vent with Lightgorged Whelps is the hardest part of this encounter. But if 2 of the Lightgorged Whelps die as fast as possible, it's less healing overall on your healers and very manageable. And then by the time the 3rd one dies, your raid team should be close to full, be able to survive the final explosion. For warriors who think Rallying Cry will really help, it will help if you're struggling on Lightgorged Whelps without Blistering Vents to keep your raid alive, but do not use it with Blistering Vent. Because remember, it's percentage based, and all you're doing is increasing the percentage of damage you're taking when you have more health. Health stones, health potions, defensives, and healer cooldowns like Barrier are what help you with Blistering Vent. Another semi-challenging part of this encounter will be for the tanks to reposition the boss during Hallowed Dive. Although your raid doesn't need to be behind the boss and all they need to be is against the wall, they want to make sure they're not in front of the boss because they can also eat Tarnished Breath, and you don't want anybody else but your tanks getting hit by that. The DPS check on this encounter really isn't that hard. There is really a soft DPS check with killing the Lightgorged Whelps in time, but the hard DPS check with the Enrage timer is not that challenging. So just make sure that your raid team is positioned correctly and killing the Lightgorged Whelps ASAP. And then with Radiant Light, it's really not hard to not get hit by this. It looks like the pulsing rain damage from Aranicus and Sunken Temple. Just when you see it, move out of the way. Once you live through one cycle of this and she light forges, you just have to do this twice and the fight is over. The main stress of the entire raid is dropping Cremation and Crimson Flare against the walls. That way you have the center free. That way it's always easy to reposition if something goes wrong. Luckily, Cremation and Crimson Flare's fire pools are not permanent, so if you do place one in the wrong area, it will go away eventually. For tanks, the start of the fight is super easy to position Solistrasza. You really shouldn't have to reposition her if your raid moves correctly until her first Hallowed Dive. When Hallowed Dive comes out, your main focus is to make sure nobody else gets hit by Tarnished Breath. It doesn't really matter where she is, just make sure nobody else gets hit by that debuff. If you don't trust yourself to eliminate the stacks through Crimson Flare or just natural time through Hallowed Dive, it's always best just to taunt swap when the ads come out. That way your healers always know who's going to be on boss. The ad tank should always put the ads on top of the boss for natural cleave and to save time in case you are getting close to the enrage timer. Like I mentioned earlier, once your raid team figures out how to do Lightgorged Whelps on top of Blistering Vents when those mechanics line up, and they will, you will have this boss defeated in no time. As long as your raid DPS know to drop stuff against the wall and be as far back to the wall as possible, this fight is not too hard. It does have a lot of personal responsibility, which is unique to our previous encounters in Season of Discovery. That's why it might seem like a challenge, when the only challenge of this fight is just not knowing the fight. Thanks for watching these guides so far. I'm trying to get them out in a timely manner. My main priority was getting the Wowhead written guides up, which you'll find a link to that in the description below. Follow me on twitch.tv/dirtyjd. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Leave a comment down below if this helps. I haven't said this in a couple videos, but thanks for stopping by and saying hi. And I'll see y'all with my Alexa the Beastlord guide or my Mason the Echo guide, whichever one I do first.